The comments and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not reflect those of their employers, friends, families, or casual acquaintances.
The challenges faced all across the country due to social distancing mandates put in place to try to control and manage the pandemic have put a severe strain on the operations of swim clubs and teams to offer training and practices, but are even more difficult for clubs that customarily rely on fully populated lesson and learn to swim programs. Our guest this episode is co-owner and head coach of his own club team in Austin, Texas, is president of the American Swimming Coaches Association Board of Directors, was captain of his college swim team, and has the goal for himself and his entire coaching staff to make each swimmer a little better every day. This is Swim Talk A2B, the second most exciting podcast in the world. I'm Dana Abbott, safely ensconced behind locked doors and sealed windows in the basement of Studio B at Swim Talk World Headquarters. The show's co-host is Bob Button, who will be joining us to chat with our guest in a moment, right after this. This episode of Swim Talk A2B is sponsored by EddieReesBook.com. The inspiring and enlightening book about legendary coach Eddie Rees would make a perfect holiday gift for any swimmer, coach, or swimming parent, or anyone else desiring to have a more meaningful and impactful life. Order now at EddieReesBook.com. That's EddieReesBook.com. And now let's get this show going. Mike Koleber of Nitro Swimming. Welcome to the podcast. Nice to have you on board with us.
It's my pleasure to be here. I'm glad to be here.
Mike is the co-owner and the CEO and the head coach of Nitro Swimming up in Austin. I'm joined today in our podcast by my podcasting partner, Bob Button, down in his fair city of Bay City, Texas. Bob, how's it going down there today?
You know, it's never better. Got a couple pups rolling around back here, so if they get kind of noisy, I'm going to cut the mic and throw them out.
Totally different than usual.
Hey, glad to have you, Mike. Thanks for joining us.
Mike, can you give us a brief description of your competitive background, age group, high school, college? I know you went to college at Oakland University in Michigan, and your age group experience was up in Michigan also. Tell us a little bit about your competitive background and then your coaching journey.
Started, learn how to swim around 3 years old. My dad was my first teacher. I remember it was in Tucker Pool in Flushing, Michigan. I remember looking up at the blue sky outdoors in the summertime and him poking me with the shepherd's crook to get away from the wall as I'm paddling across with my back. And he denied that up until the time he was no longer with us. But I remember it clearly. 2 older brothers that swam, younger sister that swam. So we grew up as a swim family, but we were involved in everything. I played multiple sports. Baseball was a love of mine all the way through 9th grade. And I didn't go single sport until 10th grade in high school. Played football. We played a little basketball. Brother played hockey. Other brother played football and basketball and baseball. We were involved in everything. I don't know how our parents got us to where we needed to go. It helped having a dad who was an athletic director in a school district. We always got the baseball gloves and the archery targets, that we got to take home. And we grew up in a really cool way to grow up in Flushing, Michigan. So I went to a school we moved down to Shelby Township, Michigan when I was starting the 8th grade and went from private school to public school, still played baseball and still swam. Ended up swimming at Eisenhower High School in Shelby Township. And then from there, I spent a year at the Naval Academy out of high school. I recruited athlete, recruited swimmer, and the academics just buried me. I didn't get kicked out of the Naval Academy, but I probably could have been. It would have been close. First 4-week grades came out after plebe summer. Plebe summer, they put you to the physical test and the mental test of, memorizing things. And A lot. There's just so much they cram into every day, and you're in culture shock anyways. When I went there, I was still 17, hadn't even turned 18 yet, and it was a shock. But I made it through plebe summer, not that much of a problem, and then academic year started. And you got to understand that I've got so much respect for anybody who makes it through the academies, whether it's any of the academies, Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, West Point up in New York, Military Academy, Naval Academy, Annapolis, Coast Guard Academy. I think it's New London, Connecticut, and then there's the Merchant Marine Academy. Also, the academics are so tough, and I don't think like an engineer. I've never been an engineer. I can't even pretend to be an engineer. I took calculus 3 times, 68, 68, and a 68. So at least I'm consistent. And I made a decision after the first year there, the second summer at the Naval Academy, to say, this is not where I really need to be. And even if I would have graduated from there, I would have more than likely finished around a 2.1, 2.2 grade point average. Well, at the academies, depending on where you finish grade point, that's where you get to select what you want to do for the next 5 years of your life, plus 1 year reserve after you graduate. And by the time it gets down to the guys where I would have been around, I would have probably been in some weather station in the North Atlantic, the North Pole, wearing a white parka.
Adak, Alaska comes to mind.
You would have gotten your selection of where in Alaska you wanted to be.
Yeah, and I could give you the weather. Hey, guys, it's cold. It's cold today and tomorrow and the next day. So I left, and back then there was the red shirt rule was still in effect. This was 1983, 84, 83, and you had to sit out a year, even if you were released from your current school, which now you could transfer as long as you're released, you could become immediately eligible. So I had to sit out a year. Went to community college at Macomb College in Michigan, loved it, lifted a lot of weights, got a little too bulky, lost some flexibility, and went from being more distance oriented to magically a sprinter with no vertical jump. So that was a treat. But I swam at Oakland University, got a chance to compete there for the 3 years left of eligibility, and had a ball there, and really was glad that my journey ended up under the tutelage of Pete Hovland, who was my coach back when I was in club swimmer, 8th grade, 9th grade through high school with the Oakland Live Wires at the time. So Pete ended up taking me the rest of the way there. But I do want to give a quick shout out to my high school coach, Roger Doyle from Eisenhower High School. He swam in Edinburgh. So I was fortunate to actually have a coach in high school who had college swimming experience. A lot of high school programs out there, you kind of get the history teachers. Oh, by the way, you need a swim coach. Well, how do you swim? And they end up coaching a high school team sometimes. I was fortunate to really have a great high school experience as well. So prepared me well for the college ranks. But that's my background.
Let me take a little pause right here, because I like what you said, giving a shout out to your high school coach. I want to do that. I had 3 different coaches. One of them is still around. So Pat Toner down in Florida. This is a shout out from me to you. Hope you're doing well. Bob, is your high school coach or coaches still around?
Henry Hank Savage, you betcha. Yes, he's in the Hall of Fame at Marcus Whitman High School, belongs there. Great coach, got me going, and boy, I'll tell you, couldn't imagine not being a swimmer. But he got us going. Yeah, you bet.
Well, I didn't mention my school. I was at Southwest Miami High School, which was also the home of Dave Marsh, 8 years after me. And 2 years right behind me was World Master swimmer Tim Shedd. Pat Toner, Southwest Miami High School, the Michigan coach and the New York coach. Glad those guys are still around, and I'm sure they'll be happy to hear that we still think highly of them.
Not a day that goes by without me, thinking in gratitude of what they taught me, and the patience, I guess, as to deal with me.
Oh, Lord, yes.
Oh, boy.
I'll tell you what, I think that was probably Pat Toner's greatest asset was being patient with a bunch of hormone-happy teenage boys. If he hadn't been able to keep the clamps on us and keep us motivated, we wouldn't have continued, and look what we would have missed out on, being on one of the most mediocre podcasts in the world, but also the second most exciting. So
Okay. Hey, Mike, I'm ready to start talking tags. I think our 4 or 5 listeners, some of them might be interested in tags. Just got a couple questions. Site, dates, does it depend on finding a cool spot in the state, cool being in quotes, and is there any consideration being given to splitting it into multiple sites? Anything you can tell us?
Yeah, we discussed all of that as part of the tags committee. And first of all, if anyone's listening and doesn't know what tags is, it's the Texas age group swimming championships, and it's a pretty big deal here in Texas. It's the best 14 and unders across the state get together twice a year, once in July usually, and once in March. And this past July, we didn't have the long course because of COVID considerations. We were going to have it 2 locations: Conroe ISD, the Conroe pool, and Mars also bid for it up in Louisville. And it's going to be, I believe it's the March 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th weekend. I believe it's the first week. Might be the second. I don't know top of my head. It's one of those 2 weekends. It's either the 4th or the 11th. We were going to have it in 2 locations because of, we're thinking COVID considerations and, split the kids up. But then there's also, you got to think about the meet host. They're going to pay a whole lot of money,
right,
to rent a facility. And is there an incentive for them to even pull it off, or do we want someone to host a meet who's going to lose potentially thousands of dollars because of lack of entries? So we took a lot into consideration, and we said, you know what, we're having meets now. Most of us are having meets, and we're just having to do special protocol that we do where the kids aren't all on the deck at the same time. Sometimes the kids are in their cars, and we got a speaker out the window, and we have a little digital board that shows what heat and what event is coming up, and
right.
walk in, and we keep it, flowing where kids are leaving, kids are coming. So you're not jammed up in a pool deck all shoulder to shoulder. So given all those considerations, we decided to go back to 1 location only. And it's depending on the number of events, the number of entries, number of kids, we may end up having flighted prelims where a different wave of prelim folks will swim and they leave, and the next wave comes in, they leave, and potentially a third wave if we need it. And I want to think it's going to be at the Woodlands, Conroe. And I believe it's going to be, I think there's 150 to 200, I think it's maybe 200 kids or 200 people. They're allowing somewhere in the 200s, 250 or so on the pool deck at once. So taking into consideration a lot of coaches, take into consideration the officials and the administrators and the ones who are helping marshal and the safety monitors and those types of folks, those all add up to help contribute to 250. So if we can keep our numbers down, and where the kids who are warming up or racing or warming down, they're in the area. If they're not, they need to be off that pool deck. And if we can do that, we believe it can be all done in 1 wave, but we're prepared for second or third flights if we have to. So it'll be at the Woodlands, Conroe, great meet hosts. Mars, they all do a great job. Hospitality is always top notch at Conroe. They do a great job taking care of the coaches. And we're excited to get tags back rolling again.
Okay, that kind of leads me into kind of a little series of questions. Let me throw them all together at once at you. I was thinking the same thing about numbers, and is it worth hosting money-wise to a host team? So here it is, all in one big jumbled mess. Does anyone look at the qualifiers per age group per event, kind of like they do for NCAAs and trials? And would there be any concerns about not having enough kids qualified and or attending the meet? And if so, would the committee think about easing the auto cuts back to, say, the bonus cuts, or allowing an additional bonus swims, things like that, to make sure we had enough numbers to make it worthwhile to host for, let's say, Conroe, the Woodlands?
We considered it, but the Conroe Woodlands folks didn't seem to be that concerned with that. And we want to be careful to not do too much re-engineering of a system that really isn't broken. And sometimes if you get too involved with the intricacies of, hey, let's tweak this, you start doing too much tweaking, and I think it starts messing with the end product. Right now, it's going to depend on what we see from qualifiers right now for us personally, it's a regular year.
Okay.
We've had a handful of meets. We're coming with the normal size, of T.A.G.S qualifiers that we expected to have. And we still have couple last chance meets coming up in the January, February with our LSC champs coming up. So I think it's a kind of a wait and see. And if for some reason it's a ghost town, we're thinking possibly TSA may help the meet host say, hey, we don't want to see anybody lose money. And we certainly don't want to, de-incentivize anybody. What's it called? I guess
Disincentivize, right. I understand you don't want the unintended consequences creeping into it. So yeah, I think that would be a great idea to have TSA maybe help out with a little supplement in case.
And I know the LSCs don't want to say that we're all sitting on stockpiles of dollars, but I know South Texas is doing pretty good in terms of having some dollars put away, and it's kind of a rainy day fund. This might be a rainy day fund, but I'm still confident that the Woodlands will be able to pull this off and make it a profitable event for them, because there is a lot of work that goes into hosting a meet, especially a meet like this. And I'm all for a meet host getting rewarded. I'm not one of those that'll ever complain about meet fees for a meet like this at this level.
You bet. And you mentioned earlier something about your lesson program, and I was going to jump into the adjustments that you may have had to make at Nitro, both in the lesson program and on the competitive side to get through this pandemic. How's it affected your lesson program too?
It's affected us pretty severely. And this is pretty much the main issue for us are the guidelines, the spacing guidelines. And when you used to be able to have, our ratios, when we're teaching lessons, we have no more than 3-to-1 ratio, 3 students to a teacher in our beginner curriculum. In our more advanced curriculum, we have no more than 4 students to a teacher. Well, we used to be able to have 3 students shoulder to shoulder and a little bit of a gap before the next teacher had their group, and a little bit of a gap, maybe a foot or 2, and we had another group of kids. Well, now with every swimmer who's sitting there, basically 6 feet apart from each other, we went from having 10, 11 teachers in the water at once teaching down to 3 and 4 teachers. So we are sitting at 30 or 40% of our potential because the capacity limits have been so restricted to what we can do. We've got a wait list on a lot of our program, a lot of our time slots, and we can't accommodate folks who want lessons because I can't put more kids in the pool right now because we have to keep them X number of feet apart. And, some of it is optics. Someone comes in with the camera, they take some pictures, they put us on, on social media, and then you're cooked. So you've got to be careful. We're waiting for the guidelines to change. We're playing by the rules. We're following the book of whatever CDC says. That's what we're doing because we want to remain open. And that's pretty much it.
Right. But to get the volume you need to survive, you'd almost have to go 24/7. How are you going to be able to do that? Right. To still follow the guidelines.
Yeah. We were encouraged when the school year started thinking that remote learning would be, remote learning where you kind of click the link and you can pick up today's lesson on demand. Right. There's not an on demand. This is the school day and this starts at this time and ends at this time. So over the summertime, when we first came back, we only had 2 kids per lane on the competitive side. And our lessons pool was pretty much a skeleton crew. We were making it work because we had all day and night and morning to work the groups through. And so our coaching staff were putting in ungodly hours, but we had to make sure we serviced our families. And then school year starts and I'm thinking, what are we going to do now? And so we're doing as best as we can, but you're right. The limitations are there. The restrictions are in place. Our capacities are limited and we're doing just as best as we can do.
Oh, that's tough. That is really tough.
It's across the country. And some have it worse than we do. At least we're in the water, right?
Right. Well, that's the thing. We're dealing with chlorine and also UV systems, so you would think we're the safest place to be.
Well, you got to think that we're in a bleach bath. Every single time we immerse ourselves. But it's funny. I talked to Chuck Warner out in Jersey one of your buddies, Dana, just a couple days ago, and they've got data that show I think up to 400,000 people now have come through the doors of New Jersey pools. Not one case is proven to be transmitted, not one COVID case out of those 400,000 plus exposures, I guess, to people, right? And it's funny, one of his families, he told me this, one of his families, the dad has COVID, the mom has COVID, all the siblings have COVID. The only one who doesn't is the one who's in Chuck Warner's Little Dolphin Swim Academy.
Well, so why can't we get everybody in Austin on board with this and ease it up for you guys? I don't understand.
Would love it. I'm ready. I'm ready for the masks to go away. I'm ready for the shields to go away. And if you feel that you're at risk, you stay at home.
Exactly.
That's my position. We follow CDC.
Right.
We'll be right back after this.
This segment is brought to you by MOXIE Soda. Folks in Maine have enjoyed the distinctively different taste of MOXIE for generations. Be a maniac and shout, "Make mine a MOXIE."
Yeah, you talk about that distinctive taste. I'll tell you, if you're missing the taste of chloroseptic in your medicine cabinet, you go down to the little local store and see if you can order some MOXIE, and you will not be disappointed. Elephants never forget, but people do. And even if you try to forget it when we say it, you're listening to Swim Talk, A2B. Now, back to our visit with our guest, Nitro swimming head coach and president of the ASCA board of directors, Mike Koleber. Bob?
Hey, I really loved your ASCA clinic talk on mistakes made along the way, most of which I've made. I wish I'd heard a list like that about 4 decades ago. Would ASCA mind if you shared 1 or 2 of those freebies for our 3 or 4 Swim Talk A2B listeners?
Oh, I would love it.
All right.
I mean, if you got them in front of you to remind me, because I keep making.
Oh boy, I'm so unprepared.
And I'll say this also: if somebody did give you that list 40 years ago, would you really read it and listen to it? I would. I got to make them. I knew everything at 30 years old, 20 years old.
Well, you're right. That would have probably gone in one ear and out the other because I was so doggone smart. I'm pulling it up right now. Go ahead, Dana. You got a question or two? I'm going to come back to that.
Yeah. The question I was going to go back to was swim lesson program being the source of great revenue. Your situation is you own your own facility. How big is your teaching pool?
Our lesson pools are 25 feet wide. One is 59 feet long, or basically almost 20 yards. And the other one is 23 yards long. Don't ask me why, other than I really wanted 25 yards. But the footprint in the building with the contractors, that's all they could give me. And I begged, please give me 25 yards. Just give me the 25 yards. But I'm 25 feet wide by 59, 25 feet by 23, 69, 23 yards. And then we have a little swim school up in Fort Wayne, Indiana that we purchased that was already built, and that is 25 by 50. And how important is it to have pools right now when spacing? Oh my goodness. If you had a large pool to use swim lessons, it wouldn't affect you that much because your kids could still space and you'd accommodate all the kids and then they'd be 6 feet apart. Everybody happy. So you've got to make your adjustments however you have to. If I'm a lessons program and I was using a high school pool and that was my bread and butter, I would be knocking down the doors of every heated source of water anywhere in the area, such as hotels, LA Fitness, Lifetime. I would be trying to swing as many deals as possible, even if it was only, hey, you can use this from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock because hardly anybody's here. You can use this one from 5 o'clock to 6:30, and it would require a lot of legwork, but it's not an impossibility. And if you're hungry enough and you want to make it work, I believe you could make something like that work, just at least to hold you up, to hold you over until you get your agreements back in place. The school districts just don't want the risk. They don't want, it's insurance. And if anything comes back and it points to the school district, man, they will run 100 miles an hour away from anything that even sounds like a potential lawsuit. So I can't blame the school districts for saying, hey, sorry, we don't know what's happening here. We've got to shut down for a while. So
have you changed the length of your lessons, like going from 30 minutes to 25 minutes in an effort to try to squeeze more out of the water that's available?
It's funny because when we first got into the COVID, when we came back from COVID, well, first of all, let me rewind a little bit. In the middle of March of this past year, when the news stories were getting, more and more prevalent of the headlines and don't go outside your house, you're going to die. The only way that you're going to die is going to be COVID, and forget about everything else. It's COVID, 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 24/7. And when that happened, we started seeing some withdrawals out of our swim school and swim schools. And my wife, Tracy, yelled across the house, hey, we're getting killed. People are dropping out of swim school. I said, give me the numbers. And she told me the numbers. This was on the 15th of March. For our program to notify us that you are going to withdraw out of our program, you let us know by the 15th of the month. So this was their deadline. I did the numbers. I did the factoring. I yelled back across to my wife, Tracy, hey, 94% and 92% of our swim lesson families still want to continue as of March 15th. I'm like, sweet, we're good.
That's great.
We're okay. And then March 17th comes, I believe it was a Monday, if I'm not mistaken. Whatever the day was on the Monday, that's when Texas comes through and the city of Austin comes through and Travis County, Williamson County, and everyone said, shut down. We're going to flatten the curve for 14 days. Remember that day? No matter what. Remember when that happened? So I'm kicking and screaming for over the 14 days, thinking, oh my gosh, we got to issue credits now for a half a month. 2 weeks worth of swimming times the number of kids we have. We got to issue credit for swim lessons. And I'm going nuts. We didn't get back in until the middle of May. 2 months later, we creep back into the water. We're allowed to come back in at a trickles pace. And so that really is what impacted us on in terms of COVID. So when we first got back into it, just to be optically, looking like, you got to make sure that it appears that, we're safe. We're not letting anything to chance. And we're going to have a shutdown period between lessons. Some people were taking different schools around the country. We're going 20 minutes off after every lesson so they can disinfect everything. And bleachers and door handles and, making the air sanitized. And we went 5 minutes. So we stayed with our 30-minute lesson, but then we took a 5-minute break to usher out the last class and bring the new class in where they wouldn't see each other. We had certain exit doors. They go out a certain way. Nobody was going to cross paths. We started thinking about that. And so now every 6 lessons, if you're going back to back to back to back, you just lost a half an hour worth of water time.
An entire lesson, yeah.
And that is your bread and butter. When you're in this business to try to stay in business, and you've got bills to pay, and we don't do swimathons. I hate swimathons, by the way. We don't do, they're called begathons for us. We don't do them. I don't like to assess parents. And so at the beginning of a season, a parent expects to pay X number of dollars per month. That's what they're going to pay per month. We don't have volunteer hours, mandatory volunteer. That's pretty funny. Mandatory volunteer. We don't do that. We don't do required anything. It's just, this is your tuition. You're going to pay it for 9 months. You don't pay tuition for June, July, or August if you pay the 9 months, September through May. So all that being said, I said, wait a minute. I can't lose a half an hour lesson during prime time to get a 5-minute break. Let's go ahead and get the kids out a couple of minutes early. So we pushed it now to 27, 28 minutes of that 30-minute lesson. Boop, they get out there. We got it down now with a new kid. The next group's coming in, old group's going out. And we're doing roughly 28-minute lessons for the most part, as opposed to 30. So
yeah, not bad.
You have to.
Yeah, that's how we're managing.
I pulled this up because I had been taking notes on all those ASCA talks that I was watching. I just highlighted the fourth and fifth ones if you want to expand on them. Fourth one you had was don't overthink writing workouts.
Oh,
and
yeah.
The fifth one was don't be monotone, be deliberate and specific, and have purpose. Those are the notes I just took on those.
Yeah, from a coaching standpoint, it's like we think we're Rembrandt sometimes. We want to create this, perfect masterpiece of a work. Oh, I wrote the greatest workout. And especially during COVID, you don't need all the intricacies of, all right, guys, we're going to do a 75 with the paddles, get the paddles up, put your snorkels on, snorkels for 150, Drew loop the snorkel, put the fins on. And coaches do that because they believe that the kids are getting bored. And so the coaches think that they must be boring as coaches. Where I take the counter approach to that, and I'm telling you, I could make 10 500s exciting. And it's the delivery. And going back to that monotone, all right, we're going to go 1050s, left arm, right arm, leave on top, work on your underwire. Please? Really? And we expect 100% from the kids in front of us. We better be delivering 100% as coaches to these kids, and that you really want to be there and that you care about being there. And so that's the one thing. The deliberate coaching and purposeful coaching. I forget the article, but it was in an ASCA journal, and I want to think it's called deliberate purposeful coaching. I think is what it's called, and it uses an example of two coaches side by side, and one coach says, "All right, guys, we're going to work 1,000 right now. Work on your turns. Leave on top." And the other coach says, "All right, we're going to do 39 of the absolute best turns you can do. 39 of them. We're talking approach, tuck, release, the approach, tuck, the push off, the streamline, the breakout, top your head leading. And every turn you do, I want the next turn to be better and more focused. And you're going to get out to the third line, and you're going to breathe after the second touch, or whatever it's going to be. You set it up. Oh, and by the way, that's 1,000. Get ready to do this, guys. Going to leave on top." Now, it just took me 15 seconds, maybe 20 seconds to create that word picture and the vivid scene of what I expect from these kids. You've got, I don't know, 15, 20, 25, 10 kids, 8, it doesn't matter, in front of you. Which group is going to get more out of that 1,000? Just for me taking the extra 20 seconds, obviously the second group, because that's deliberate, purposeful coaching. Gosh, warm-ups and warm-downs are usually the most wasted parts of a workout, because coaches, all right, let's start with an easy 500, or let's do 600 skips, 600 skips, swim, kick, pull, swim, whatever it's going to be. And they just let them go. No, set them up for success, set them up for something deliberate the moment they're going to get in that water. All right, guys, we're going to go 600. I want every third length to be a distance per stroke, no more than 11 strokes per length. Just something.
Right.
Just something. And make sure it's productive. I got after one of the groups this morning. I was just helping. I decided, I'd help with our highest level group. And I took half the group, and they were doing a set of 400, 300, 200, 100 twice. So they're going to go 4, 3, 2, 1 twice. And I had anyone who wanted do it IM, I had the IM group on the A interval, and I had the freestylers on the B interval, because they were the same interval. I can do that. I'm not very good at juggling multiple intervals. So I told Dan Rozek, our lead coach of the performance group at our Cedar Park location, I said, "Dan, I said, I'll take the group on the same interval. I can do that for you." And we kind of laughed. It was a 400 IM on 5 minutes, a 300 IM on 4 minutes, a little bit more rest, a 200 IM on 3 minutes, a little more rest, and a 100 IM on 2 minutes. And repeat it. 4 on the 5, 3 on the 4, 2 on the 3, 1 on the 2, twice through. And we had the B freestylers with us. Well, they take off and they do the first 400 IM. And I don't know, after a 25, I look across the pool. I see a couple guys standing up, doing the old tricep stretch. I see someone playing with their goggles. I'm not kidding. I'm watching this. And I had been in front of
that 115 base.
it's after one length, and I hadn't even, I hadn't been around them in a while. And so, and a lot of these kids I had when they were younger. So I walked down to Dan and I said, Dan, I said, why is everybody standing up? Why are they turning around? Why are they cutting? Why are they sitting out of 50? Why are they flipping at the 12 and a half to try to catch the group? I said, why is this happening? He said, I don't know. They've just been doing it for a while. I said, not anymore. And so the 3, 2, 1, I let them finish and I stopped. And I brought them all together, my group, with 6 feet distancing, right? And I got them close to me. And I said, listen, I said, I like to be happy. I love to be a happy coach. In fact, even today, right now, I love being here, but I'm not happy right now. And I said, here's the deal. I said, is there anybody here who doesn't get bothered by someone next to them standing up and skipping a 50 during a hard set, or skipping 100, or deciding to go do a bathroom break as soon as the hard set gets tough, or standing up to do a fake stretch or a goggle issue? Is anybody here bothered by that? And only maybe 2 or 3 hands went up. That was it.
Oh, really?
And I said, all right, we've got a bigger issue here. I said, you all should be infuriated when that happens. Our high school teams, I'm telling you, I'm talking to you two right now, Bob and Dana, I can guarantee you that you guys were infuriated if that ever happened during your practices.
You bet. Hold each other accountable.
It would happen once.
And I said, you all have to be in charge of this. I said, I can't wish it for you. I said, I got to see we win junior nationals sometime during my lifetime. But I tell you what, it won't be this group if you continue allowing this and not being bothered by somebody who stands up during a swim practice, during a hard set. Now, if you get to a point where you just can't move 1 more inch, I'm okay if you stop, but you're going to get out and you're going to go somewhere where your teammates don't see you.
Bingo. I can't stand to be training or have my kids training and see somebody sitting there. Get out of sight.
Right. And it's one of those, I guess, irrefutable laws of success in swimming. You're not going to get what you want to get if you're doing those types of things. And to have a group who's not upset about it was more infuriating, I guess, to me. So I said, guys, whenever you all decide to change your culture, you'll see things change in this pool for this group. Right now, it's not going to change until you have to make a decision to change it. And it goes back to, the All Blacks rugby team out of New Zealand, and it's team
sweeping the shed.
Yep, sweeping the shed and holding each other accountable. And I didn't see it. So I said, you know what I would love? I said, by the way, I'm giving you a rest right now before the next round. We were supposed to go right to 4, 3, 2, 1, but I was so upset watching what I saw. I couldn't just stand here and let it happen. So if I have a wish list, it would be really cool to see a 400 and not a 398 or a 367 or a 342, an actual 400, wall to wall to wall to wall for the 400. That'd be awesome. And then if we do that, oh my gosh, that'd be just a wondrous moment. We could maybe do a 300. And now, guys, this is our top end group. And but they came through and they rebounded and it looked great. And they did it. They did an awesome job in the second round. But it really shouldn't take me blowing a gasket to get them what they should be doing to begin with anyways. And that's a culture thing. So, there's no perfect program in the world. There's no perfect program in the country. Everybody has their issues. We all have our issues. But what we can do as coaches is just correct the trajectory every chance you get. If it's going off course 1 degree, get it back on. If you don't, it's going to be 2 degrees, 3 degrees. Before you know it, your rocket's supposed to go to the moon is going to end up on Mars. And
or you have to hit the abort button.
So I'm not the only one that looks over and says, hey, I thought these were hundreds, not 99s. Let's put a hand on the wall.
Right. And so you joke about the 4 or 5 listeners to this podcast. I want them to take comfort in that everyone has issues. Every coach out there is going through it. The coach who's telling you the presentation, making it like everything's great on their program, they're lying. They're lying. Anyway,
Okay. While we were on the subject of ASCA, we got off on a little tangent, but I loved it. Okay, real quick. The latest on our CEO. We know Bill stepped down, and Dana's too busy editing podcasts, so we know he's not interested. Can you give us any kind of an update on an ASCA CEO?
Yeah, I'm ultra encouraged, and I say that from the heart as the ASCA volunteer board president who didn't run for the position. When Mark Schubert pokes you in the chest and says, "You got to do this," you kind of say, "Oh, okay, I'll do it, Mark. I'll do it, Coach." And so I'm in my second year of the ASCA presidency, and it'll be the third hire we have to do for an ASCA CEO. But the core group that's doing the work for ASCA is in Fort Lauderdale, and it's Kyle and Aaron and Matt and Karen and Kim, and those five are holding this ship moving, and they've been around for years, and they're doing a great job. And I love ASCA's offerings. I'm encouraged with this new hire because we haven't hired the person yet. We haven't found the person yet. We haven't even put an ad out there yet. I'm getting emails and inquiries and applications, I guess, sent in, resumes and cover notes of people that want this position. Well, we're going to reverse engineer it for the first time. And we should have done this a long time ago, and we didn't. But we are having the ASCA staff be a major part of this process. The ASCA staff themselves know what is needed and what they need to take ASCA to 2021 and beyond. Yes, we're going to update and upgrade the certification programs, and we're going to blow the lid off of it. We know that USA Swimming is going to have theirs, and we're all part of USA Swimming, and I applaud USA Swimming for doing it. I'm sure it's going to be a great program. But with our USA Swimming offerings, we do Safe Sport, and we do the Foundations of Coaching, and we do the USADA. Let's be honest, we do it because we have to, right? And you're sitting through there, and there's nice videos, and you answer the questions, and you pass the test, and then you go off in your merry way. We do that stuff because we have to. We're going to make these ASCA certification modules so good that coaches will do it because they want to. And because of the value it's going to be in it. Look, gosh darn, the 15-member board right now that we have, and I won't name them all, but Braden Holloway from NC State, Mitch Dalton down at University of Texas, who was with USA Swimming Performance for a long time, Megan Esting, who just took over Mecklenburg, Mike Murray up in New York. We've got Doug Warm, Nashville Aquatic Club, Mark Schubert, Dave Marsh, who we mentioned earlier, Dave Salo. I mean, these are all, and I'm sorry, Jeff Julian, Jimmy Tierney, Chad Ontken, Ken Heiss, Mason Manares, Dave Gibson, Fort Lauderdale. This is like a who's who.
You took the words out of my mouth. It is a who's who of quality USA coaches.
Matt Credits, University of Tennessee. And tell me we don't have the resources right now of just this 15-member volunteer board to do what we need to do for ASCA. So, to answer your question, finally, reverse engineer it. We're finding out. I've already got the information from the ASCA staff already. We've got an ASCA board call tomorrow, Tuesday, the 19th of January. So by the time people are listening to this, it's already happened. And we're going to go backwards into the position. What skills, what characteristics, what traits, what the work ethic, all those things, the abilities and the background and the experience and their resumes. What do we need for ASCA to really move? Are we going to look for the right person? Are we going to go person first, or are we going to go position first? And so we're building the position from the ground up, and then we're going to find that person who best fits what the ASCA staff needs. And all 15 of our board members and all 5 of those ASCA staff members will be are already involved in this process. So I'm excited for that. And I think you're going to see, not to do any sense of an age discrimination type thing, but I think you're going to see more of a youthful look for ASCA as we launch in the future to really, really relate to the younger coaches out there. So I'm excited.
I think we need to. When you think about all the youth in our sport right now, especially, let's just take you're in Texas right now. You know how summer league is king, but it's a double-edged sword. We got so many summer league swimmers and so many summer league coaches that need an ASCA type program to help them with their coaching. I just think we're missing the boat here, and I'm sure there's other states that are in the same situation that we got to educate some of these young coaches with a lot better than we are, and ASCA could do it. We have to get some of these boards all around the state, some of these country clubs and leagues to just say, hey, you know what? Let's make it a point to get our coaches involved in ASCA and get them the foundation, whether they're going to go on and be USA coaches, high school coaches, college coaches. We don't care. We want to have the best summer league coach we can have. And right now, I don't know that we're doing that.
Yep. I'm excited.
That covers everything I had in mind to ask about tonight, Mike. I don't know what else Dana has.
I thought Bob was going to cover this. He didn't, and that's unusual circumstance. We were talking about it with Brent Rudemiller last week about the loss of the Olympic bump this year and the impact that's going to have on U.S. swimming or even age group and high school swimming. How do you see it affecting those levels of swimming in the short term and in the long term?
I'll do you one better, I guess. Let's look at what's the opposite of a bump? I guess a hole.
Yeah.
A crater.
Depression.
Yeah.
The COVID crater. It's the COVID crater. It's not an Olympic bump. It's honest to goodness, it's a COVID crater. And so you've got to think of how many kids have we lost to the sport because the opportunities weren't there. The meet opportunities were. I mean, to look at a black line over and over and over, stare at that black line and put your time in, you need a reward. And for a lot of kids, that reward has been competitions and meets. And those have been grossly underperforming, I guess, or just not able to do them as much. And it's taken some kids out. Hey, we're going to go do something else. Hey, we're going to do nothing right now. Hey, we're going to stay home. We have somebody who's at risk in our household. We can't take that chance.
Right.
You lose some kids here. We're going to be taking out a nice percentage of USA, well, actually global swimmers who have either had their pool taken away. There's no practices. And I mean, how many Zoom drylands can you really do, before you kind of check out a little bit and say, you know what, I'm going to start doing some basketball or I'm going to play soccer.
That's scary.
Because soccer can still play because they're outside. Football can still play, baseball can still play. If you're in a situation where you lost your water, I don't know how you keep those kids. And you hope they come back, right? But I feel bad, not even for the athletes of the kids. I feel bad for kids in general. I'm 56 years old presently. I can live with this. I can put up with it. I can endure it, I guess. But these kids don't get their childhood back. They're missing a year has pretty much been vacuumed out of their childhood that they're never going to get back. And that to me is really, really sad. So Olympic bump, I think, is one thing. But I think even on a larger scale, we've lost kids entirely who were in the sport who are no longer in the sport. So, everything's cyclical. I think it can come back, but we're going to be behind the curve. And it's kind of like, you're missing a timeline. As the timeline is getting pushed through, there's a timeline. Part of it is just a chunk that's just removed and it won't come back. And you just got to keep on pushing down the road. In a few years, we will be back to what we call, I hope, normal. And I don't like the term new normal. I want normal. And I want old normal. And I think we'll get there personally. Again, I'm optimistic.
A lot of these kids that are coming up through swimming programs eventually gravitate into the world of swim coaching. And they will get on with a club as one of their younger assistant coaches. And if they're any good and they stick with it, they're going to get to the point where they're thinking, I think I could do this on my own, start their own team, which is how a lot of teams in this state that I've observed have gotten started. They want to go out and start their own team, do it their way, like Frank Sinatra said. What advice would you give to younger or prime of life or any age coach who are tired or frustrated and they want to go out on their own? What are some of the pitfalls that they have to watch out for?
Well, first thing, you've got to secure a facility.
Got to find water. Yep.
You've got to get your water. And that's when I get asked that a lot by different coaches across the country. I get emails and calls a lot on the span of any typical month. And that's the first thing I would do do you have water? Do you have access to water? Well, no, we don't. Well, there's not going to be able to do much then. Yeah, there's a pool. It's not being used. Is it warm? Does it have heat? Yep, it's got a heater. Awesome. See what you can do to secure it. And that's what you do. And once you know you've got a deal in the works, then you can go ahead and get your team rolling. And you've got to do it better than what's being done. And in the world today, even something that's mediocre seems to pass as being pretty good. And I think that you can do it better, and you can do it with more energy and more positivity, and you can attract more kids. And I guess on that note, you don't need a championship team coming out of the gate. I don't ever say, hey, go recruit some kids from other teams. No, don't go to other teams. Don't do that. Build it from the ground up. Start with the kids who just want to learn how to swim, and be patient and build it that way. If you know what you're doing and the word starts getting out, people will come your way without you having to go get them. And I guess that'd be my advice. Do it better, and do it with more passion. And our mission statement at Nitro is pretty easy. I've never been a real big mission statement kind of guy. I've never been a vision statement kind of guy. The mission statement, if you look at any club USA, usually is, we're going to empower young athletes to be the best they can be through the sport of swimming, dot, blah, blah, blah. And it's boring, right? But that's because they say, USA Swimming says, you got to have a mission statement. Okay, well, here's what we suggest. And everyone uses that same mission statement or a slight variation of it, right? And I'm listening to, I want to think it was channel 111, but I'm not sure. It might be on Sirius XM. It's the Wharton Business Channel. And I'm driving around. I listen to Joel Osteen quite a bit on 128 to get my positivity in, because there's a lot of bad stuff happening in the world. And you got to protect what goes in your mind, right? You always got to protect it. And I'm listening to the Wharton School of Business, and they've got a program called Moneyball. And it's sports. It's sports and business. And it's on every single day. And it's a phenomenal way to spend your drive. Or if you're not in your drive, get the app and listen to it while you're at your house. And it's called Moneyball. And it's from the Wharton School of Business in Pennsylvania, at University of Pennsylvania. And there was a guy in there talking one time about mission statements. And he says, if you don't have one, you better get one. But it better be something that you want to accomplish every single day, whatever that is. And so, all right, you convinced me. So I go home. Honest to goodness, within 2 minutes, I had our mission statement. And it's 9 words, and it's 3 sentences. And all it is visible improvement, period, delivered with passion and joy, period, every day, period. That's it. Visible improvement, delivered with passion and joy, every day. Any parent who's watching their child in any kind of a sports program, they want to hear one thing. They want to hear their child's name. They want to look as they look up from their iPhone or from their phone or from their tablet or from their book, whatever they're doing, as they look up because they hear their name, they want to see their child being paid attention to. And the last thing they want to do is they want to see that the coach is enjoying the fact that they're coaching their kid. And sometimes it means a size 12 or 13 up somebody's rear end, but there's a way to do it with love. And there's a way to do that, believe it or not, with joy and passion. And maybe not so much joy at the time, but it's passion. And if it's done correctly, you can do it. And so that's our mission statement at Nitro. And every one of our coaches knows it. It's easy, it's simple. And anything that they're working on, does it go back to the mission statement? Did you show visible improvement today with this group? Well, no, not really. Well, guess what? Get back on the horse, because tomorrow you better show double the improvement out of this group. But if you can focus on those things, for us at least, I know we're doing our jobs, and I've got a pretty good idea that we shouldn't be bleeding too many kids wanting to quit if they've got coaches on the pool deck who are passionate about what they do, but are also joyful in what they're doing. And you can tell a coach who wants to be there, and you can tell a coach who doesn't want to be there. You can go to any hospital, nurses that love being nurses. And nurses that should have gave it up years ago. And you just hope that you get the nurse who wants to be there. Same thing with school teachers, any profession, you pick it.
I was going to say, I really enjoyed your comments about Annapolis, the U.S. Naval Academy. I've got a young man I'm working with on the staff of the club team that I'm with right now who swam for me at Katy High School, went to Annapolis, class of 96. He is now a retired naval aviator. But, the old Navy slogan, it's not a job, it's an adventure. And then I'm looking on the Nitro website right now, and it's saying a parent asks you, what's it like having the best job in the world? And you respond, it's not a job. It's not a job. And I think what you just said, that when you start feeling like it's a job and you're just going to it because it's a job and you have to go there, it's time for you to get out, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's funny, the dad who used to ask me that question, what's it like having the best job in the world? I yell, hey, Scott. His name is Scott Vandenberg. This was years ago. We were still outdoors. This was 2005, 2006. That was our daily shtick. We would say that every day, and that became like our little comedy shtick. He'd yell across the pool, hey, Mike, what's it like having the best job in the world, greatest job in the world? And I'd say, hey, Scott, it's not a job. And it was every day for 2 years. It was our shtick. I just saw him just maybe 2 weeks ago, and I said, Scott, you're on our website, but I didn't use your name, but you're on the website.
Well, I like what it says right after that little blurb on your website, because it says that you do what you can to help make the swimmers better people in the process. This is only going to be a small slice of their life, right? So exactly. What is it we're teaching them that's going to have value in their life? Teach them how to deal with adversity, how to win, how to lose, how to deal with pressures, and just to be a better person. Do the right thing.
Exactly.
There you go. Yeah, when it's pouring rain down here, they often hear from me, hey, it's a great day to swim outdoors in Bay City. So, yeah, we're into it.
I wanted to ask you, you've been a member of ASCA for a long time. How did the path develop from you being just a coach member like all of us when we get started to being a speaker and being a part of the leadership? Is there anything that pushed you in that direction, or did you sort of scratch your head some days and think, I wonder how I got here?
I just was thinking that earlier today when we're working on the new leadership for ASCA, and thinking to myself, how in the world did I become part of the organization that puts out these great articles in the magazines? And I guess it's a legacy, right, for a lot of years. And I attend the World Clinics, and I'd always be in the meetings, the business meetings. They'd have I think it was like an early Friday morning. They'd have no one else would be there, but I'd be sitting there in the business meetings. And honest to goodness, it was a tap on the shoulder saying, hey, you built your own 50-meter indoor pool, right? At the time, I only had one pool. And I said, actually, I was an ASCA member prior to that, but getting involved on the board, I says, yeah. And they said, what else have you done? I said, well, I swam YMCA growing up. I swam, back then with USS, swimming. Then it went USA swimming. A high school swimmer. I did summer league. I love summer league swimming. I love it. And when I was a kid in the Flint area, in Flint, Michigan, and then ended up at the NCAA level and went to senior nationals one year out at Santa Clara, 1986, I think, senior nationals back then. And they said, but you built your 50-meter. I says, yeah. How'd you do it? I said, well, we took a lot of risk and we still owe the banks a lot of money, but I wouldn't change it for the world. They said, what would you think about being part of, would you want to ever serve on the board? And I'm like, ugh. And I said, yeah, I would. And it was kind of my way of trying to give back whatever I can. And the same reason why I'm on this podcast right now. Swimming has been really, really good to me. And I believe I owe everything I have to this day to this sport. And it's to the point of now, it's like, I want to try to give back, and however I can help a coach who's, experienced coach and inexperienced coach. I don't care how old they are. I think at any age you can become a great coach, right? And early on this podcast tonight, we talked about the mistakes, and I said, I'm still making them, and I don't ever want to be to the point where I think I no longer make the mistakes. And honest to goodness, I think you need to embrace them and don't be afraid. And failure's fine. The example I used to give to my wife and I, Tracy, when we're building this, this endeavor, which by the way, took 5.5 to 6 years from napkin sketch to the day that we opened our first indoor location. 5.5, 6 years. That's blood, sweat, and tears, and a lot of falling. But we'd always say to each other, hey, if we're going to fall, you got to fall forward. Just fall forward and get back up. Fall forward and get back up. As long as you're falling forward, you've got momentum, with you. And so that's how I got involved with ASCA. And then, I tend to be somewhat practical. I think it might be an attractive quality that I'm not polished on the Roberts rules. And I'm willing to give someone a second shot and listen in and listen to an opposing viewpoint. And like my staff can come to me with questions or an issue on something, and I might say no right away, but I'm going to sit on it that night and I'm going over it in my head. And I'm thinking, okay, let me think. All right, let me go back to them the next day. And they know it too. I'll go back to them. Hey, you know what? I'm thinking about that idea. What if we try it this way? Now let's work on that one. Awesome. And so I like having staff buy-in. I'm not that authoritarian when it comes to our staff. I'm certainly not a micromanager. I don't stand behind a coach and, hey, let me see the warm-up. Nope, change that. Let me see the main set. Nope, change that. They roll with what they want to roll with. I don't want automatons and robots on a pool deck all saying the exact same thing the same way. I love the different personalities, and I love having the assortment of styles on a pool deck. And I think it's great when kids go from group to group to group that they're going to get exposed to a different style of a coach. And I think it all adds to helping what you said earlier, making them better people and how to become, a productive citizen as they get older. My goal in all of this is when they're 35 years old and 40 years old and they've got some young kids themselves, if they're driving by one of our centers, I want them to want to pull in and say, let me show you where I grew up. And let me tell you a story about this particular coach. And it was a day that my dog got ran over by a car, and they knew that something was wrong. I didn't want to swim. He noticed it. He pulled me out. We sat and talked for an hour on the side of the pool on a bench. It was the day that my mom and dad got divorced. It was the day that my grandfather died. Whatever those issues are in their lives, a good coach knows that and can clue into it, because you become a master of body language and a master of facial expressions. And man, when I got 6-year-olds in front of me, I can detect a tear welling up in a tear duct before you can see it. Coaches realize that, and you can stop that tear and you recognize it. Hey, come here real quick. You look a little bit nervous. Hey, let me take you for a walk. Let me show you this thing works. And you can diffuse situations and just make it a great experience. But I want that former swimmer to come in with their kids, and I want them to be proud to walk on the pool deck and say, wow, this person made a difference for me. When we first started the podcast tonight, you both shouted out to your high school coaches, and I shout out my high school coach and my college coach. I had 18 coaches in my life that were influential to me. If you gave me a couple of minutes, I can name all 18 of those coaches from the time that I was 6 years old, 5.5, 6, to the time that I graduated college. Every single one of them, and I could probably tell you a story about each one of them. And I know you guys can do the same thing.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Absolutes. You've been in sport a while. You probably were coached a certain way, and now we're saying don't do that anymore. What do you think has stayed with us since you were a swimmer that we got to keep doing? It hasn't left us.
One was if it's a 50, it's a 50.
It's not a 49.5. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. If you do 500, you don't stand up, do the fake clear of the goggles and do the cutting and jump back on the guy's tail that just earned a little lead on you. That drives me crazy. I love a great kick set. And I was never really a gifted kicker. I had to work really hard at kicking. But man, you could put a hammock on a pool deck and you can get a kick set going. You lay me down that hammock, I am off. And that to me is music to my ears. I love a good kick set. The one thing I guess that we got away from is a lot of the underwater swimming, the extended breath holding.
Mm-hmm.
We used to do that a lot as a kid. We did it all the time. All right, guys, underwaters. And we would do, 50s and 75s, without breathing. And that's something that, science has helped us through that era of saying, boy, we had that wrong. Just so dangerous to do.
I got a club kid that is a real go-getter, Mike, and he would be one of those that could go a long way. And I just told him, hey, we can't do that. We gotta tap the brakes on this.
No, I used to do it when I was in high school and when I was in college. It was a macho thing for the guys. You know, how far can you swim underwater? Well, I'll show you. And you don't think about the dangers, but now, you know, we've got a lot more, as you said, scientific evidence and medical evidence on why we shouldn't be doing that nonsense.
The scariest part of it is that there's no warning. All of a sudden, your CO2 levels go to a certain level. You just black out. Mm-hmm. And so even if we're doing 25s, no breath, we've got a really good system where the swimmers in the lanes are watching, the coaches at both ends of the pool are watching. There's no one being not watched, and that is a very, very. I get real nervous now. It's funny. I'm still swimming 3 times a week. I do about 3,000 yards 3 times a week, but I swim with a handful of people. I will not swim by myself, even in 4 feet of water. I'm 6'3". I will not swim by myself because there's always got to be somebody watching. As I've gotten older, I think I've become a little more safe in my practices of being careful.
When you mentioned the COVID crater, I thought that was really important. Somebody's got to be able to figure out how to get these kids, like you said, maybe they're getting into a different sport, that maybe we can rescue the sport and bring these kids back out of that COVID crater and keep that from killing us.
One of my coaches tonight, Randy Teeters, just said sanctions were just now okayed for the month of February, where our LSC here weren't allowing any meets to be scheduled for the month of February until they got the clearance and got the okay. So here we are now, January, whatever it is, 16th, 17th, whatever the date is, I don't know what the date is, 18th. We're already halfway through January, just finding out that we can do meets in February. Well, that's pretty difficult to keep a kid enticed and motivated enough to be, because you got to swim for the goal, right? You swim for the goal. We always say embrace the process, right? It's always about the process. But let's be real. 10-year-old boys, if they want to race, 14-year-olds, they want to race.
Yeah.
11-year-old girls, they all want to race. We want to race. And so I think more meet opportunities are what we need. And it's very difficult because we're so limited on how many kids we can put in there. So we announce a meet and it gets filled within a few minutes. And so I've got the bulk of our kids aren't able to even get in meets. And that's tough. So what you could do, another workaround, I guess, is rethink your practices. Rethink your practices. Let's have a little bit more fun time. Let's have a little bit more race time. Let's have a little bit more competition time. Let's do some crazy cannonball contests and have prizes.
Right.
And besides the competition, we need some more recognition time too. We're doing dryland Zoom 4 mornings a week and 2 afternoons a week. And it's a different group every 2 days, or they rotate every other day. But I know a lot of the parents are in the same rooms. They might be in the kitchen fixing breakfast while the kids, on the other side of the breakfast bar in the living room doing their stuff. And they've got the volume on. So when I see kids doing something good, I say it out loud, like, Tanya, that is an outstanding position for plank. Way to go. Parents will hear that, but the kids hear that too. So competition is great. Fun is great. And recognition has got to fit in there too.
Well, what we do down here the last couple of weeks, we did one practice. We did a little obstacle course time trial type thing and crowned our girl and boy champion. And then I guess it was last week we did a board flip contest is within a set, and that was fun. And we've done some time trials, things like that. So yeah, you can incorporate this stuff. It takes a little bit of work, and you got to work it in, but we got to do more because, like you said, they do want to race. Now, if you're just now getting sanctions approved for February, we're talking about last chance T.A.G.S type opportunities for these kids.
Correct.
Those are going to fill up in a hurry too with your kids that really want to hustle and get their cuts or their bonus cuts, right?
Yeah, that and another challenge on the meets is that with having lower number of participants per meet, right? You can't pack the venue anymore. You've got to keep the number of kids are a lot lower than they used to be, which means you really need to run more meet sessions. Well, running more meet sessions means a little bit more wear and tear on your officiating crew. I've already approached the USA Swimming, I think four of the board members personally, and I want to think that they're continuing with this because all four of them said, "Oh my gosh, yes, we'll work on this. We'll work on this." I wanted, similar to how you can, I guess, it's validate a course in college or whatever it's called, or where you
Auditing
auditing a course. Every swim team out there has some parents that were former swimmers or are current swimmers. Every team. And that have the experience, that know what a false start is, that know that there's two-hand touch on breaststroke and butterfly, and here's an underwater pullout. They know this stuff, right? And it takes so long, so many hours of commitment for someone to become just a start and turn official, let alone an admin meet ref, starter, and a meet ref. And I personally, for our program, I don't need most of our meets. I don't need a meet ref who has national credentials. All I need as a meet ref is to run a meet for some 10-year-olds. And I think the criteria is the amount of time it takes for the average person to become a stroke and turn starter, admin ref, meet ref. To get up that ladder takes a long time. And if you've got a former NCAA swimmer as a parent, it's not going to take them long. So my proposal was have them sign on with a meet ref and have them be the mentor, or they can be the professor, and have the proctor, the assistant professor, which is the new ref. If that ref feels good enough that, wow, I've got Kathy O'Neill Wengler. She swam at University of Michigan. She's one of our moms, right? She swam for Jim Richardson for years and years. She knows, and she's a mom now. She does masters for us. She knows her stuff. How long should it take her to really become a meet ref?
No, it's kind of like when we had Bill Brown on. He was talking about he'd been like a head timer for meets, and after a while, one of the meet referees just said, "Hey, why don't you just go take the test? You know as much about this stuff as the rest of us." And maybe that's something they could do. They've put the hours in on deck as a volunteer, have them test out and move on. They put the hours in.
Yeah, because I'd love to have 5, 6, 7 or so meet refs in our stable, and now I got a rotation going. And I could have I could run a meet session every single Saturday afternoon, but I could bring a different crew in to do it where we're not killing our meet refs and our officials. And those people are so nice anyways. They have a hard time saying no, but there's a point. Everyone has a breaking point, right? And I just think that we
picking up the phone.
Yeah, we need more. We need more officials. Everybody does, especially meet refs and admin meet refs. And they're usually standing, and they're on concrete or pool deck, hard floors, and most of them aren't young parents. Most of our officials when you get to be starter, admin, or meet ref, more than likely your kid's already gone, and they're coming back to do a meet without even their kids being there. That's commitment.
I used to have a parents meeting at the beginning of each high school season, and I would tell these parents, their number one job is academics, and then athletics, and then social, and everything else is tied for third. But I told them that this thing we're doing in the pool, this is a small slice of their life. And so we're trying to give them, as I said earlier, the tools to be successful in life later. And they are not going to remember their time in the 50 free at the district meet when they were a sophomore. What they're going to remember are their experiences with their teammates and their coaches and their rivals. They're not going to remember their times or the medals or the ribbons so much, but they'll remember the competition. And so, Mike, I would just want to ask you, is there anything that stands out in your mind as one of the neatest things you remember from your high school experience?
Yeah, believe it or not, I'm a junior in high school, and it's the county meet. And the county meet was you didn't represent your school, you just kind of represented yourself for this particular meet. Well, they had an award there called the Robert Furlick Award, named after a gentleman, and that was for the most outstanding senior of the meet. Well, I'm a junior, and I'm in the 200 freestyle, and I'm ranked third, and I'm going against two of the seniors from our biggest rival up there, which Warren High School. And there's one guy named Greg Petrell and one guy named Joe Mochan. And they had a swimmer, a really good swimmer there named Joe Hojanacki, if you know the name at all. He ended up swimming at West Point, of all places. So they had three great seniors. And I'm in the 200 freestyle. And I know that Petrell goes out pretty hard. He's a big, big, strong guy. And Joey Mochan was a bit of a smaller guy, but he negative splits it. And if you're with him at the 100, he's going to dust you on the last 100. So I told my dad, I said, Dad, the only chance I have against these two guys is if I just got to go out like an idiot. I just got to go out so hard and so fast, make sure I'm getting my air, and just try to hold on. And it's not the smartest race strategy. I get up for a 200 freestyle, and I'm a junior in high school, and I take off. And they're like, what in the heck is he doing? Right. And so we get to I see Mochan at the 100. Petrell I've got already. Here comes Joey Mochan. I'm like, oh, crap. Here he comes. And I'm hearing like the Jaws theme. Dun, 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 dun. Every flip turn, we're at the 125, he's closing the gap. We're at the 150, he's closing the gap. We're at the 175, and I got to make a half a body length. I'm coming home in the last length. I no breath this thing from like the opposite backstroke flags all the way to the wall. And I touch the wall and I edge him out, right? And I win the 200 free. And I'm not like I didn't jump up in the air and go, I'm number one. I was not one of those kind of guys. But I just gave one of those little bit of an elbow pump to myself. You know, you make a fist, you just do a little elbow pump just in your own gut. And that's the part I'm smiling, and I just do that for myself, not for anybody else. That's the picture in the newspaper. And it says Mike Koleber in his upset win in the 200 freestyle. And up to the point of to the day that my dad died in 2010, that was his favorite picture in his office because he got he knew the newspaper, and he got it, the glossy from the newspaper back then, put it behind glass, and he had this black and white picture of me in his office. And so to the day that he died, that was his favorite picture. And so that to me was one of the best memories I have, period.
What a great memory.
That is cool.
Yeah. Mike Koleber, it has been great chatting with you. I'd love to get back out on Lake Travis on your boat, or maybe you can come down to Matagorda with me and Bob and go walk on the beach and
take the pups with us.
Chase the dogs, yeah.
Hey, in case listeners want to follow up on anything, let's say with ASCA, do you mind giving contact info?
Oh, shoot. I always give it out. Mike at nitroswim.com. MIKE at NITROSwim.com. And I'm usually quick back on emails.
Okay, excellent. Great input. I know we bothered you on a holiday, and I couldn't thank you enough. Dana, I hope you're going to have this episode up by midnight.
What month would that be? I will tell you something, Mike. Bob and I made a special commercial. Bob actually made it. Commercial for the ASCA virtual clinic coming up, championship season. So when I send you the notice that the podcast is up and running, listen for the this is an advance warning. Go ahead and listen for the ASCA commercial.
Yeah, our commercials are real high quality. The Gator Pickle ones especially. That's a beauty.
Oh yeah, listen to the podcast we did with Brent Rudemiller. It's got a couple of cool commercials in there.
You're going to get right out there. You're going to want to go first thing, order some magic swamp dust and probably some Gator Pickle. What were they? Quail eggs? Yeah. Gator Pickle quail eggs are number one on your list.
Whiskey praline sauce or something.
Yeah, you're going to go order that stuff today.
Very good.
But anyway,
been great having you on.
It's been wonderful. Right.
My pleasure, guys. I appreciate the time that you guys took.
Thanks so much. We look forward to seeing you around.
My pleasure.
Talk to you soon.
Okay.
See y'all.
Bye, Mike.
Bye-bye. I just signed up for the ASCA virtual clinic, the one that's coming up on prep for championship season. It's coming up. I can just say something right now about it.
Are you a member of the American Swimming Coaches Association If you aren't, why not?
Yeah, I like that.
That was a good one.
Yeah, we can keep that one.
Well, you could add in the info about the upcoming clinic.
Well, and here's the thing. Some people aren't going to get a championship season, and they might think, whoa, what do I want to do with that clinic? Take notes and use it for the future. The virtual clinic for me is going to come up after my championship season's over. I'm still going to watch them and take notes and use it for next season.
Listen, I've got notes from September 1975 from Doc Councilman's one and only Coach's Stroke Clinic, and it's still applicable today.
Yeah. Okay.
Anybody can use it. I used to take copious notes, and I recorded stuff too.
Well, let me do a real brief one here, because I'm looking at a little bit of the info, and I just signed up for it. Like I said, it's like $49. It's nothing. I think it's worth $49 because they're going to do just what they did in the fall. They're going to leave it up there for 30 days afterward. If you can't watch them live, you still can get on there and watch them later. Sounds like I just did the commercial, doesn't it? All right. I'm ready if you are. You're recording, right? I can just wing one if you want. In 3, 2. ASCA's got a virtual clinic coming up. It's called Preparing for the Championship Season. Your championship season might be over, might not be happening. It's still worth it. Sign up, $49. The dates are Thursday, January 28th, Friday the 29th, and Saturday the 30th. It doesn't matter if you can't catch them live. They're going to leave it up for 30 days. It's worth doing. Take some notes. Catch it when you can. Speakers include Greg Troy, Johnny Skinner, Abby Fish, Ian Murray. I'm going to stop now because I'm not going to name them all. You're going to go to swimmingcoach.org and check it out yourself. Sign up for the ASCA Virtual Coaches Clinic, Preparing for the Championship Season. You got 30 days to watch them and take your notes. It's worth it. It's going to be good. $49. Come on.
Swimmingcoach.org.
Yeah, they need to do 3 or 4 of these a year like this. Even when COVID's over, they need to do stuff like this. This is so valuable.
We hope you're still awake and that you enjoyed this episode of Swim Talk A2B with our guest Mike Koleber of Nitro Swimming. If you're trying to get to sleep and this podcast didn't do the trick, try following the advice of our network doctor, Dr. Vinny Boomba. Listen to 2 more episodes and call us in the morning. See you next time.